Hello and welcome to the channel of Hashaliach once again, and I trust that God is blessing you. I trust that God is blessing you. Pay attention. Today is the 12th of December 2024. And I always find it amazing that God can take us, you, me, into situations and we don't even realize why we are in that particular situation until he starts to speak to you and you see things happening. Anyway, are there other gods? I mean, it's a valid question, and many people worship uh, other gods, so they say. But what does God Himself say about other gods? Does He even talk about other gods? Is there such a thing? Well, in the book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 3, now this is the Ten Commandments, but very simply in verse 3, Complete Jewish Study Bible, it says, "You are to have no other gods before me." Now, why would God say to his people, "You are to have no other gods before me," if there were no other gods? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So the implication is there are other gods. Now, we need to go a little bit deeper and try and understand, well, who are these other gods? And so I want to look at a few scriptures, but I also want to share a little bit with you about a situation that God um, put me in at the very last second. I had no intention of going into this situation, but I suddenly found myself in the middle of it. So I'll be sharing that situation, and it is very sensitive. And again, depending on where you are in the world, and depending on the circumstances and situations, this can be very, very sensitive. And you really need to be led by the Holy Spirit. Otherwise, things can get out of hand very, very quickly. But let me turn to Deuteronomy chapter 19. And I trust that you will find this instructive and helpful, certainly for some people. Back in my home country of Scotland, there are many pagans and they worship all sorts of gods, getting up early in the morning or late at night and going to the high places and having some sort of gathering and fires burning away and people dancing and maybe drugs are involved. But anyway, in Deuteronomy 19, excuse me, in verse 15, it says this: "One witness alone will not be sufficient to convict a person of any offence or sin of any kind. The matter will be established only if there are two or three witnesses testifying against him." So, two or three witnesses are required to basically establish a matter, establish a truth, reliable witnesses. Now, remaining in Deuteronomy, I'm going to Deuteronomy 32. And it opens up like this. Now, this is the Song of Moses, but it's very instructive. Just listen to this. Verse 1, Deuteronomy 32. "Hear, O heavens, as I speak. Listen, earth, to the words from my mouth." The first witness, the heavens. The second witness, the earth. "Hear, O heavens, as I speak. Listen, earth, to the words from my mouth. May my teaching fall like rain. May my speech condense like dew, like light rain on blades of grass or showers on growing plants. For I will proclaim the name of Adonai. Come, declare the greatness of our God. The rock, capital R, the rock, his work is perfect. Who is the rock? The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are just. A trustworthy God who does no wrong. He is righteous and straight. He is not corrupt. The defect is in his children. A crooked and perverted generation. You foolish people, so lacking in wisdom. Is this how you repay Adonai? He is your father who made you his. It was he who formed and prepared you. So Moses in this song is calling on two witnesses to basically witness his words, to hear what he's got to say. And the first witness is heaven, the second witness is earth, but there's two witnesses there. Now, I'm just going to jump forward to verses 16 to 18. And again, read Deuteronomy 32 yourself. Very instructive. They aroused him to jealousy with alien gods. This is talking about the Israelites. But it also speaks to us, especially us as Christians who claim to be Christians. They aroused him to jealousy with alien gods, provoked him with abominations. They sacrificed to demons, non-gods, gods that they had never known, new gods that had come up lately. New gods were coming up lately back then, excuse me, and they're doing exactly the same today. New gods that had come up lately, which your ancestors had not feared. You ignored the rock who fathered you. You forgot God who gave you birth. Moses, in these verses here, he uses the Hebrew term shedim, which is demons. It means demons, plural, demons. Verse 17, they sacrificed to demons, non-gods, gods that they had never known. Basically what he's saying is, he's saying these other gods are not gods, they are actually demons. They are demons. This is what Moses says. Now, if I jump into the New Testament, because there's Moses in the Old Testament, one witness. One witness. Is there a witness in the New Testament? Well, I'll jump forward to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 20. Starting at verse 20. No, what I am saying is that the things which pagans sacrifice, they sacrifice not to God, but to demons. And I don't want you to become sharers of the demons. This is in context, it's food sacrificed to idols or other gods. Paul uses the term demoniae, demons. Paul tells us in the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians 10, that other gods outside the one true God are demons. Your witness from the Old Testament is Moses, and he says all other gods are demons. The witness from the New Testament is from Paul the Apostle, and he says all other gods are demons. In the final scripture, before I share my situation with you, final scripture, I'm going to Exodus chapter 34, verses 12 to 15. Be careful not to make a covenant with the people living in the land where you are going, so that they won't become a snare within your own borders. Rather, you're to demolish their altars, smash their standing stones, and cut down their sacred poles. Because you are not to bow down to any other God, since Adonai, whose very name is jealous, is a jealous God. You're a born again believer. This is speaking to the Israelites, but it's applicable to us Christians. If you're a believer, you belong to God, and He is jealous for you. He is very jealous for you. He does not want you involved in any way with any other gods, because all other gods are demons. Verse 15, do not make a covenant with their gods. Do not make a covenant with the people living in the land. It will cause you to go astray after their gods and sacrifice to their gods. Then they will invite you to join them in eating their sacrifices, and so on and so forth. I think it's very, very clear that God tells us there are other gods, small g, and they're very, very dangerous because they're actually demons. And if you start getting involved in these things, you will soon be involved in maybe even eating food that's been sacrificed to them, or even in worshipping them through song, through prayer. You think, surely not. I mean, I'm not going to, pray to false gods. I'm not going to sing to false gods. Well, I found myself in a situation on Monday. Now, I hadn't even any thoughts of this. It was only on Sunday night I found out about a meeting. It was a public meeting. And again, I want to be sensitive here because I need to protect certain people. I'm trying to get a point across, though. The devil is moving very fast and he's very subtle in some of the things that he does. So, anyway, there was this meeting, and it was a ratepayers meeting with the local council. And so a friend of mine was going along and he asked me if I wanted to come. So at the last minute, I said, well, okay, why not? I'll go along to it. And so I went into this huge hall, and I don't know how many it holds, but I would say a few hundred. And so I took my seat, and you had a panel at the front, the council and one or two others, and MCs. And so there was maybe, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 people on this panel. And then you had all the people in the hall, locals, who wanted to hear what was being said, and opportunities to ask questions through a Q&A session. And you could speak to any of the panel members that you wanted as the microphone was passed round. Now, I'm not going to talk about what the actual meeting was about. It was something significant, but I don't really feel it's necessary to give that information. But the meeting opened up with someone speaking in a language that I did not understand. And this went on for quite some time. And then it moved into prayer. And again, same language, I didn't understand what was being said. And then it moved into a song. And at the song, everybody stood up. And I did as well because it's just automatic. But after a few seconds, I thought, whoa, 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 no. And I sat down. Now, it takes, I'm not going to say courage because I don't want to say, look, I'm some sort of courageous person because I'm not. But, when you go against the grain, it can take, a bit of effort, let's put it like that. Now, there were other people, there was a handful of people that actually remained seated, and I remained seated. Now, I just want to say I didn't take part in or give assent to anything that was being said, and also the prayer and also the singing. And people were singing with gusto, including all the panel as they stood up and heartily sang this song, which a lot of people did not understand. And I thought at some point somebody will explain what has been said, what has been prayed, and what has been sung. But no, it just went straight into the meeting. So I sat there and look, the whole thing lasted about 1.5 hours. So it was quite a lengthy meeting. Excuse me. And there was a lot of questions asked, and there was I mean, there was a lot of it got a little bit tense at times, but by and large, the meeting seemed to go well. Now, after it, there was another room set aside with some food and drinks and stuff like that, and the panel were all wandering about. So you had an opportunity to speak one on one. Now, one of the panel members was actually a Christian, and in my opinion, actually a very good Christian man, a very good Christian man with a very, very difficult job. Very difficult job. I believe he's probably the only Christian in that. He's certainly the only Christian on the panel, as far as I know, and probably in the council, possibly in the council. But I spoke to a different panel member, and I said to them, I said, look, this meeting opened up with speaking in a different language, and then praying in a different language, and singing in a different language. And I said, it was a woman, I said to her, I said, look, I thought maybe that people would have explained what was being said. I said, I had no idea. I says, I don't understand this language at all. And so I thought somebody would explain it, maybe yourself. And it was a little bit tense. I think they were quite offended that I'd raised this. And but I was quite legitimately saying, look, it says, how can I give assent, or how can I even understand what's being said if I don't understand the language? And I said, and I wasn't the only one. There was many people in that hall that didn't understand the language. So after she calmed down a little bit, I don't think she was too angry, but she said, look, we were just welcoming the people that were in the the hall and the people that were on the platform, the panel. And it says basically that's what was happening. And I said, well, look, I said, surely if you'd explained that, people would have been really happy and they would have been, able to join in and things like that. And I was told, says that, oh, your feedback is very good, and I will certainly, we will certainly consider that in the future. But then I pressed a little bit more, and then I was told, oh, it was also to invite all the other gods in. And I thought, this is why God put me here. I kind of sensed this anyway, or should I say, I actually knew, to be honest. But it was good to get that confirmation. And it was good to know that I didn't take part in anything that was being said, prayed, or sang. You see, it says, don't make a covenant, don't align yourself with these type of things. See, I'll be honest with you, again, I'm trying to be sensitive here, but I found it very deceptive. Why not explain what's being said, what's being prayed, what's being sung? Now, okay, I got that information. So I wanted to speak to the Christian who has got a very significant position. I wasn't able to do that in the morning. So I went back in the evening because the same meeting was on at 5:30. There was one at 11 o'clock in the morning, which I went to. I went back to the 5:30 meeting. I got there a little bit later, so I missed all the speaking, the praying, and the singing. And at the end, as I did in the morning, I went through to the other room where there was food and you could speak to people. Excuse me. And I went up to the Christian and I said, um, look, as a Christian, would you be happy to align yourself with demons? And the individual said, no, not at all. And then I explained what had happened. Now, whether they understood about this or not is, I suspect they did, but he was in a very difficult position. And what I'm trying to get to here is when you find yourself in certain situations, it can be very difficult to go against the grain. Very, very difficult. By the grace of God, I did it. I was in the group of many people there, and there was about another 3 or 4 that were actually remained seated as well. So it wasn't just me. But he was in a very difficult position. Now I wanted to go on and say, well, look, why didn't we also open up with a Christian prayer? That would have been good. But you see, Christian prayers are not tolerated, and neither are Christians. We need to be very discerning in these days, very, very wise about some of the things. Look, in other parts of the world, they're opening up with New Agey type prayers and all sorts of other things, but they are communicating with other gods, which are demons. Don't be under any illusion here. These things are real. And if you are giving assent, you're aligning with them, you could be in for a bad time. You could be in for a bad time. He that's in you is far greater than he that's in the world. But we cannot go aligning ourselves with other gods, which are in fact demons, according to Moses and Paul the Apostle. And our God tells us that he is a jealous God. He is jealous for us. And he tells us in Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, you shall have no other gods before you. So, anyway, I hope that helps you in some way. I was relating it to a real situation that God had put me in, and I'm praying for that man because he's under a lot of pressure, and you don't need to know his name, but I mean, if you could say a prayer for him that God would strengthen him, give him wisdom, give him insight, give him understanding, and just the ability to stand up in the midst of a very, very difficult situation. But this is happening all around the world. In fact, there was a guy that wrote a book, a guy called Jonathan Cahn, and it was called The Return of the Gods. And I find it ironic that I find myself in a situation which actually affirms what he writes in that book. So, anyway, friends, I don't want to go on too much longer because it's already at the coming up 24-minute mark, a bit longer than normal. But again, I trust that God is blessing you, the God of this Bible. And I trust He will continue to bless you as we move forward together into this new year, which is less than 3 weeks away. So, anyway, may the Lord bless you, and I'll catch you again. Bye bye.